Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
There have been various paranormal and supernatural events reported throughout the history of Chile. But in 1996-97 there were several particularly odd incidents that involved citing testimony of humanoids, strange unworldly beings and alien abductions. The following reports are some of the known incidents within that 2-year period. It was the winter of 1997. Mr. EJFP, 43, a security guard at a major industrial concern in Meleco, Chile, was monitoring Section 22, occupied by a water treatment plant some 20 meters distant from the main plant. The watchman was alone and pulling the 1500 to 2300 shift. He stood near a light post in a corner, as the guard post afforded poor visibility. It was a dark night, overcast but with no rain. Toward the northern reaches of the compound there was a wire fence, 10 meters away from the position he occupied. At 21:15 hours, his attention was drawn by something immediately beyond the barbed wire fence. A person stood there facing him, average height and completely dressed in white. He could not tell if the garment was a tunic, but it was clearly visible in the darkness. The watchman, as was his duty, challenged the arrival, as no one was supposed to come close to the facility. But the figure did not move, nor did it issue any sound or word whatsoever. Precisely at that moment, a vehicle conveying the watchman's immediate supervisor approached the area. The watchman turned to look at the arriving vehicle, but when they turned to look at the figure in white, it was no longer there. No shrubs or trees could have offered concealment, the figure simply vanished. The dim light kept the watchman from making out any features on the figure. He asked his superior if he had perhaps seen something beyond the perimeter with his vehicle's headlights, but the reply was negative. Other security guards patrolling the area had already remarked that strange things were sometimes seen in the area. 2 months later, while pulling a duty shift from 2300 to 7 o'clock, Mr. EJFP was assigned to watch the La Laguna sector, a forested area some 200 meters from the main plant. He only had a medium-sized flashlight with him, and it was turned off. At around 4 o'clock, while walking along a trail that crossed the woods, EJFP noticed the silhouette of a very tall person approaching him along the path. This figure was somewhat hunched over and walked noiselessly. When the figure came within a distance of 4 meters, the watchman turned on his flashlight and pointed it at the intruder's face. He couldn't see any features beyond the fact that he had 2 glowing eyes, that were not those of a human being. The figure was dressed completely in black and was clearly looking at the sentry. EJFP felt fear, turned around and made a run back to the public roadway some 200 meters away, remaining there until dawn, when his shift ended. He claimed to have seen the outline of a head and shoulders, but the overwhelming fear caused him to run for safety. EJFP added that another watchman fainted when he found himself in the presence of this tall, glowing-eyed presence. At least 6 similar encounters have occurred in the vicinity of this plant, and it is even common to see UFOs. On one occasion, large fleet of unknown vehicles, looking like arrowheads, flew over the area no more than 100 meters over the ground. Near Maria Elena, Chile 1996 late night, Gonzalo Fernandez Gamboa and several friends were camping out in the desert and were having a cookout around a large fire. Suddenly, as they sat around talking, a tall stranger appeared out of nowhere. The man was about 1.90 meters in height, with very wide shoulders, impeccably dressed, in a white shirt, no hat. He approached the group and, speaking in perfect Spanish, asked the group for some fire. One of the men grabbed a small stick about 40 centimeters in length, lit it up and gave it to the stranger. The stranger thanked the group and then added, "Be careful with fire, it could be dangerous." The group was extremely surprised since the stranger was completely clean without an ounce of dust on him, while the group was totally covered head to toe by the desert sand. The stranger disappeared into the darkness. Several of those present attempted to locate him but could not find any footprints or traces. Near Tocopila, Chile, summer 1996 afternoon, a family of 4 was driving on their way to Tocopila, but halfway there, the father, driver, changed his mind and decided to return, explaining that by the time they arrived to Tocopila everything would be closed. On their way he took a secondary road that passed by an empty airfield, located in an isolated plain. As they drove near the airfield, they all noticed a strange triangular-shaped mark on the ground. However, they did not stop to investigate. Soon they began hearing bizarre screams resembling those of a woman being attacked. Immediately after that they all saw a brilliant humanoid figure at least 3 meters in height. It shone like brilliant metal. Its face was oval-shaped and its eyes almond in shape, emitting a brilliant light. Astounded, the witnesses watched as the shiny giant creature stepped in front of their car and signaled them to stop. The mother began screaming as the creature turned its head towards them and emitted a brilliant beam of bluish light from each eye. The whole time the driver slowed the vehicle down until it was going a minimal speed. They were able to notice that the creature had extremely long arms. It was of thin build, and was wearing a one-piece shiny silvery outfit. It was totally hairless. As the mother screamed hysterically, the creature disappeared in plain sight and everything returned to normal. The witnesses quickly drove away from the area. Casablanca, Valparaiso, Chile, November 16, 1996. Several local students at the basic Manuel Baquedano school reported encountering several little gnome-like men about 30 centimeters in height. The little men wore different color clothing and usually hid in the trees and bushes. Their leader appeared to be an aged-looking one, dressed in black, who threw stones at the curious children and emitted strange shrieking sounds, at the same time making signs with his hands to stay back. 12-year-old Felipe Guerrero Silva reported seeing other friendlier gnomes wearing red, green, and white clothing. The entity wearing the white clothing seemed to be the friendliest, at times calling the children. Near Hualqui, Chile, December 1996 night, a man riding a horse in an isolated area encountered a short robotic figure, apparently humanoid, that approached the horse and apparently frightened the animal. The rider quickly left the area, thinking that the apparition had been a demon. No other information. An electrician claims having been abducted by a UFO while traveling by car between 2 towns in southern Chile. Gabriel Encina, 47, states that the strange experience occurred 6 years ago, but that the anguish he experienced kept him from disclosing it until now. No one can keep me from thinking that I was abducted by something or someone. What I saw wasn't an airplane or a flying saucer, it was simply a very bright light that landed on top of my car, said Gabriel Encina in an interview published by El Diario Austral de Temica. Encina notes that he never discussed the subject and that only his wife and close friends knew about it. I know that others will call me a madman. In spite of the time that's elapsed, I'm still a bit affected by it. Ever since that abduction, I have headaches, migraines and bone trouble, he explained. I have difficulty sleeping, I'm afraid of dreaming, and when I close my eyes, I see that light following me, moving slowly toward me. Chile, a nation of 15.5 million inhabitants, ranks 5th among the countries having the greatest number of UFO sightings, after the USA, Peru, Brazil and Russia. Encina recalled that the incident occurred on June 27, 1996 at 2000 hours, 2400 Greenwich Mean Time, while traveling between Las Sauces and Angol in the La Araucanía region, 608 kilometers to the south of Santiago, under clear skies and the damp weather characteristic of that winter season. I suddenly saw a very bright white light some 3 meters in diameter which appeared and descended and followed me. I accelerated, but curiously, the car lost speed," he added. He says that when the light landed on his vehicle, the radiance was so intense that he could make out dust particles floating in the air. "That's when I felt anguished and passed out." According to Encina, when he awoke, both he and his car were some 12 kilometers from where the encounter with the alleged UFO took place. "My legs trembled, and my head hurt. I was surprised that my wristwatch had stopped at 20:05 hours, although almost an hour had elapsed since the encounter," Encina explained. In mid-April of 2001, Erasmo Mina, an expert with the Centro Informativo para el Fenómeno OVNI en America Latina, CIFOAL, disclosed the massive presence of UFOs between the cities of Angol and Victoria which could be seen by the unaided eye. Until 1990, Chile experienced over 400 sightings and the country's northern region was the scenario of a number of cases, such as so-called close encounters of the third kind and the abduction of a Chilean army corporal by the crew members of alleged flying saucers. FA News Agency, May 14, 2002. Santiago, Chile, February 1, 1997, 1 a.m. While Claudia Fuentes' sister felt a warm rush of air enter her room, Claudia left the house and suddenly found herself waking down a long hallway in which she was met by several humanoids, described as having long arms, wrinkled mouths and four-fingered hands. The humanoids led her to a place resembling a hospital, removed her lower part of her garments, and placed her on a stretcher. Although Claudia was not aware that she was pregnant, a 6-foot-tall creature extracted a fetus through her, placed it inside a square jar filled with a bubbling fluid, and walked away with it. Claudia also reported seeing other creatures with similar features but measuring only 3 feet in height. She has no doubt that she spent well over 3 days in that place, although only 3 hours elapsed in normal time. When she regained consciousness, she found herself lying in the middle of the town square, where some witnesses claimed seeing a sudden burst of light. There she was found in a semi-conscious state, frightened, weeping and with wet hair. Llano section, Santiago, Chile, February 13, 1997, 23:30. Marta Aguilar Montoya and her 2 small children were asleep in the bedroom when suddenly she heard a crackling noise. Turning to look towards the TV set in the room, she noticed a small figure, about 4 feet 8 inches tall, wearing a tight-fitting suit and a helmet. The helmet had a visor and the being also wore a backpack connected to the helmet by 2 hoses, one over each shoulder. Afraid, she took her 2 children to her bed and just watched. The being stared at the trio but never made a move towards them. After several minutes the being turned to face the bedroom wall. Again there was a loud crackling sound and then the beings disappeared through the wall, leaving only his silhouette on the wall, which disappeared after 2 minutes. Lago de Rapel, Chile, February 16, 1997, 4:30 a.m. 2 youths, aged 16 and 14, were returning home when they suddenly found themselves being followed by a brilliant object. Upon arriving home, they ran inside and could still see the object quietly hovering outside. They then woke up their father, who thought they were joking. All 3 looked out the window and noticed that the object was now on the ground and next to it stood a being 4 feet 8 inches tall with a large bald head and wearing a bluish suit. All 3 witnesses became scared and hid until the object and its apparent occupant left the area.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.